Previously on the Decline of Shoujo Anime.
Shoujo anime is on the decline.
Girls don't watch anime.
The manga still sells well.
Patriarchy.
Shonen anime? I'm gonna kill God. And another thing. Why do I always have to advocate for shoujosei anime in the first place? Why is the onus always on me for having to have my voice heard when the capitalist hellscape should just be responding to my dollar? You know what? I'm just sick and tired of every year having to make a video about the decline of shoujosei anime without a single cite in change. This is my third year now. I'm so tired. Shoujosei man, you're telling me that A Sign of Affection got an anime? That was one of the series I was harping on Kodanja about for not having given an anime yet. But, you know, that's just the bare minimum. That series should have gotten an anime a while ago. It started in 2019 and it's only getting one in 2024. That's just the tip of the iceberg. That's... A second shoujosei anime announcement has just hit the fandom? Well, what is it this time? A condition called love? What the fuck? I actually won for once? Oh my god. This might actually be the start of the shoujosei renaissance. It appears that whilst my prior frustrations of the anime industry's denial of feminine media was rightfully placed, we are seeing prospects of a shift in the... Oh, sorry guys, I am getting over a nasty cold and a really bad case of TikTok face. Every year since my first Decline of Shoujo Anime video, people have wanted to claim that a shoujosei renaissance is coming. And every year I resisted the temptation to even become a little bit positive. Letting in a little ray of light leads to hope, and hope can only be crushed so many times before I become so jaded that even people who like my videos find me insufferable. A few shoujo anime adaptations a year a renaissance does not make. However, on the second anniversary of the video that got me an audience spreading the good shoujosei news, I can finally remove the pessimist part of the pesifeminist label I've been given. This year, I'm taking what little crumbs I've been given to become a half glass full of crumbs kind of person. I truly do think that 2024 could be the turning point for shoujo and josei anime adaptations. From A Sign of Affection airing with beautiful animation, to Honey Lemon Soda, one of the best-selling shoujo manga right now, finally getting an anime announcement. Things may just be looking up for the old Colleen stir. In the past years, I have used these videos to bring to light that shoujo manga are rarely getting adapted into anime, simultaneously refuting the arguments people have as to why that happens.
Girls don't buy merch, or girls don't watch anime,
being the most common ones I see in this regard. With the sheer amount of anime that has been announced since the last video though, I really don't feel the need to rehash all of that. I feel like I've made my points in the last ones pretty clear by now. Instead, we're going to switch it up and do something I've never done before. Talk about how manga even gets made into anime. The two go hand in hand, since manga adaptations make up about 40% of animated television series in Japan, according to this Reddit user. The production of anime in Japan is something I haven't really touched on in this reoccurring series of videos yet, but it is an important part of uncovering how shoujo gets shafted before it even has a fighting chance. There's a real mystique around how anime comes to be. Some may think that this responsibility lies solely on the director or the animation studio. They are the main credits on the project that you see after all. The fact of the matter though is that there is an oft-forgotten hero who lies in the shadows of these big-name creators. The person who brings an entire group of creators and backers together. Someone who picks the director, decides the head of animation, plans the timeline, and sorts out the budget. We're, of course, talking about the producer.
I wanna be a producer and say you, not you.
This hat is fucking stupid. I don't want to wear it the whole time. Mina Lay, don't get me for historical accuracy. The producer for any piece of media is one of the most pivotal people attached to a project. From movies to TV, without this little known role, you would have nothing to browse through on your lazy Sunday. Much of the responsibility of getting a project off of the ground falls into their hands and even into their pockets. They take on the brunt of the burden to get their ideas in front of head honchos who will broadcast it. Take, for example, the recent smash hit Barbie. While many may think that the film was brought together by the director Greta Gerwig herself, it was actually Barbie who was the glue to this US sensation. Margot Robbie's production company called Lucky Chap, which she helped found with 2 others, was a large reason why this film was able to be made. She was the one who pulled in people like Greta Gerwig and many others to get this script in front of the Mattel committee. Without Robbie and her production company, we would not have the Barbie phenomenon that we do today. This same sentiment goes for producers in the field of animation as well. Producers come in many shapes and sizes, and their roles can often become confusing to those unfamiliar with the corporate side of media, myself included. Some may work for animation studios directly, some may work for companies, and some may even be companies. For example, DMN Pictures established a label for production on anime series in 2017 and is the reason we have Rent-A-Girlfriend. I would wish for their downfall, but they are also the reason we are getting A Condition Called Love as an anime. You win some, you lose some so horribly that you have to drown yourself in soju just to cope getting through it.
There's one more chapter of Volume 1! I have to read more!
There are largely 2 ways that manga get adapted into anime that we'll be focusing on for this video though. The first of which is when a publisher goes to a producer to get them to pick up a manga for an anime adaptation. If a manga is doing particularly well for a company and they would like to get it a little more popularity, make some more money, they'll shop around with different producers or production companies to see if anyone is interested in optioning it or picking it up for license. As is the case with an editor of a shoujo magazine who was proud of the manga they were helping create, it was becoming a hit, so they went to go get it optioned for an anime. Sales for a series plays a huge part in whether or not a manga even gets considered for an anime. If it's barely scraping by in the magazine, of course the publishers won't risk losing more money by having the anime flop as well. Anime aren't guaranteed hits. In fact, in 1 month's time in 2005, it was estimated that 72 weekly anime were produced. 37% of these were new series, and only 3 of those made it past the 2-year mark. This large turnover leaves companies less likely to help support the production of anime, especially if the products they make in tandem with it end up going to waste. Even in the case of a producer who wanted to create a series, they had to consider the sales beforehand. A producer for Toei, Hiromi Seki, stated that while she wanted to make an anime for the high school spin-off of popular magical girl series Doremi, the sales for the volumes weren't there at all. If there's no sales for the books or the manga that they originally came from, then the people who would invest in these anime, like sponsors or merch companies, would see no gain in being involved in the project. This leads into the second way in which manga get adapted into anime. When a producer contacts the publisher first, interested in getting the rights. It's not always the publisher that thinks that they need to get their manga out there. Sometimes a producer will pitch the idea to them if they see the series as being a moneymaker franchise. They arm themselves with backers and investors beforehand who are willing to sign on if they get the green light. Anime adaptations of the manga series Sengoku Yoko and Welcome to the Ballroom seem to be examples of this. The producer for Sengoku Yoko, Ailan Kai, talks about how he turned the series into an anime because he was originally a big fan of the manga. On the other hand, Tetsuya Kinoshita was very interested in getting the ball rolling for an anime adaptation adaptation of Welcome to the Ballroom. The process of getting this anime a production was just taking a little bit longer because it was a more complicated dance series. Eventually getting put into contact with another producer who was working at Production IG at the time on Haikyuu. In some cases, producers, publishers, and animation studios are all linked together. This is the case with the publisher Mag Garden, which is where Ancient Magus Bride is published. The company is a subsidiary of Production IG, so when it came time for them to think about an anime, all they really had to do was walk over to their neighbor, maybe put on a little bit of that signature moe charm, and ask for a new anime. Onegashimasu, businessman-san. There is a fan aspect to these producers too, though, especially in the cases where they are the ones who are pushing for these series. Like I said, Sengoku Yoko and Welcome to the Ballroom had producers who were very big fans of the manga series before they even became anime. You also have another example of this with the producer Toshio Nakatani, who pushed for the original Berserk anime back in the 90s. Each of these people in charge had to have a passion for the series that they wanted to see come to life. When you want to make something, you never do it half-heartedly or without a deep love for it. As per usual with me, this is where we hit a little snag in the road. Nothing can be entirely positive on this channel. Not when we're in domain expansion lethal sexism. Like many other industries out there, the anime industry is also dominated by men. Of the producer names I have mentioned so far, all of them have been men except for Hiromi Seki, who is working on that Magical Girl series. According to Ian Condry in his book, The Soul of Anime, he estimated that about 1 out of every 5 to 6 people in key positions like producers, scriptwriters, or directors were women. This should come as no surprise to anyone who has watched any of my videos before. Recently, in my shoujo manga retrospective video, I discussed the Equal Employment Opportunity Law in Japan and how it essentially has segregated women into taking clerical work and gives them less opportunity to rise in ranks. Also discussing how this plays into less women getting higher roles in shoujo manga publishing, even if the men who are in charge have admittedly never read shoujo manga themselves. All of this plays a big reason, in my opinion, as to why shoujo gets pigeonholed into the romance genre. With how closely tied manga and anime are, this same dynamic happens in the anime industry. While women are taking higher position in animation companies and as producers, there's still a long way to go. There are very few women who are CEOs of animation studios, let alone producers. TMS only just hired their first female producer in the late 2010s, Minako Fujiyoshi. However, since 2021, Fujiyoshi was still the only female producer on their staff, meaning that while women joining the industry is becoming increasingly more common, getting those high-ranking positions are still out of reach. In Fujiyoshi's own opinion, she says that it's often because if a woman goes on maternity leave, their spots in the animation teams get filled right away. They aren't really encouraged to return to work, and even if they do, they can't really climb the ladder afterwards. This is a large reason why the Equal Employment Opportunity Law is very criticized in the first place. It insinuates that all women are going to get married, leave their job, have kids, so why leave the clerical track? Because there you'll have less responsibility and no upward mobility. If you start to combine all of these issues together, we can begin to paint a picture of what's going on here. With less women in positions of authority, and women in general being the largest consumers of shoujo manga, as men don't often read across the aisle, these shoujo and josei manga series have less chance of getting picked up on the publisher side and the animation studio side. Men in these executive producer positions are more likely going to be picking up the shonen and seinen titles because they're more often going to be fans of them, or at the very least, they've heard of them. There is that fan aspect of creating as a producer after all. This point is corroborated even further in a recent interview with Manga Passion by a female editor, Nakamura, who works for the shoujo magazine Betsu Frey. You may know this magazine for currently popular titles like My Girlfriend's Child or Gazing at the Star Next Door. The interview is a very rare and honest look behind the curtain at the current state of shoujo manga publishing. Although not entirely the point of this video, there are some very interesting opinions that come from Nakamura in that interview, such as how she believes that the Tohoku earthquake in 2011 shifted the stories in shoujo manga to becoming more lighthearted, as reality outside of the manga world was already very harsh, leading to an oversaturation of romance series in shoujo magazines, which I always attributed to COVID. What is the pertinent part of this interview, though, is when Manga Passion asked Nakamura why she thinks that shoujo manga get adapted into live-action movies more so than anime. A topic that we have covered in this yearly series twice now. Previously, I've made arguments that live-action adaptations for shonen are made just as frequently, and there's also the excuse that producers or companies give that girls just grow out of animation. Nakamura, however, states a few key factors as to why she believes shoujo manga gets made more into live-action movies or TV series. The first is that Japanese movies tend to target young women as their core audience. Romance movies in Japan are still very popular, so a steady frequency of these need to be made to accommodate for date nights. And what better source material to turn to than shoujo manga? Nakamura goes even further by saying that the bishonen boys in shoujo manga is a great way to have fodder for male actors' careers in these movies. If we look at the American side of the TV industry, we can see similar sentiments there as well. Companies market more of their live-action TV series to younger girls because they can force more products into the shows, largely giving up on animated series geared towards girls, which isn't the case for boys since it's assumed that they'll just continue to watch these into their teens, thus creating a feedback loop where girls continually get left out of the nerdy side of media. The same could be said for these shoujo manga adaptations. It seems like they focus less on the manga side of things and cater these movies towards the quote-unquote typical teen girl consumer, one who has less otaku tendencies. The second reason that Nakamura gives for why these manga don't get made into anime as much is something that us fans have been preaching all along. The anime and manga industries are dominated by men, thus giving the illusion that shoujo are just not popular. They'll feel as though their female audience is less important to satisfy, as they themselves aren't really interested in the source material either. In addition, higher budgets for anime adaptations is also considered in this. There's more money required to go into anime productions than in live-action ones. So, companies would rather hedge their bets and make sure that the male audience will show up. One of the shoujo manga that I always bring up whenever someone tries to say that shoujo doesn't sell well is the series Honey Lemon Soda. It is the current best-selling shoujo manga series with over 12 million copies in circulation as of 2021, and no anime adaptation until this February in spite of this. You would think that Shueisha's moneymaker would have gotten an anime adaptation with the rising sales, but it took 10 years for that to happen. Honey Lemon Soda will be getting an anime starting in the winter season of 2025. While this is a huge win for this community, I still can't help but feel a little bitter because it took so long for one of the best-selling series to get one. It's what we talked about in the last installation of this series. That pesky little intersection between capitalism and misogyny that is always playing a role in our consumption of media. Even if producers know that they can reach a large amount of women when they are making a series, if the men aren't going to show up, they don't find it as lucrative. Since women are often more conditioned to not really care about the target demographic of something, you're more likely going to get women showing up and watching your male-oriented shows. but not the other way around. Nakamura ends this whole sentiment by saying that it's an unfortunate situation, and it's perhaps because not enough people in the industry have a direct influence on the budgets. Which leads us right back into the issue of not having enough women producing series. As always, I want to emphasize that I in no way think this is some inherent difference in the gender binary. I do think that it is just one of those things that gender roles and attitudes have been pushed on us in society. When the biggest audience for shoujo is women, and women do not have a say in producing these series, you're going to have less shoujo manga considered for anime. Once again, doubly so because the publishing side is also dominated by men. What I do actually find pretty funny is that Nakamura edits for a Kodansha-run shoujo magazine. Granted, Betsu Frey is the magazine from Kodansha with the least amount of anime adaptations right now. However, Kodansha itself has been one of the companies to announce the most anime adaptations of their shoujo series within the past few months. These anime announcements have come from their other two shoujo magazines, Nakayoshi and Dessert. Magazines that haven't really had many anime adaptations either since the first season of Cardcaptor Sakura Clear Card and Real Girl, which both aired in 2018. The sudden uptick in these anime adaptations could be for a whole multitude of different reasons. Maybe Kodansha is predicting a rising trend in their shoujo manga series, or maybe they just want to boost the popularity of these magazines. They were once at the forefront of the magical girl media mix with Cardcaptor, Sailor Moon, Tokyo Mew Mew, and Shugo Chara, all coming from Nakayoshi. It's possible that they are gearing up for another push like this with their recent series Vampire Dormitory, which is airing this season, and Anyway, I'm Falling in Love with You, which will be coming soon. I imagine this time around, Kodansha will just be focusing on their romance series rather than their magical girl ones, since they don't have many currently right now in the first place. Considering what Nakamura said about lighthearted romance series being all the rage right now, on top of the fact that romance series in general are becoming increasingly popular within shoujo and within the male demographics as well. Lucky for them, Dessert has some of the best-selling shoujo manga currently, and it is full of romance series. The heartfelt A Sign of Affection just wrapped up airing last season, and one of my favorite series ever, A Condition Called Love, is getting an anime right now. Go watch it. If Kodansha keeps this up and is seeing a boost in their manga sales, we are going to increasingly see other companies competing against them, which was one of the biggest points I made last time around as well if we wanted to see a shoujosei renaissance. To see more shoujo manga getting adapted, we need to also have publishers feeling like they need to get them to sell. Unfortunately for shoujo, it seems that the need to sell volumes doesn't outweigh the need to sell magazines. This may be another key reason as why we are seeing more shoujo manga getting adapted, with more ebook readers and manga apps. This entices readers into more individualized reading rather than the entire magazine itself. Even with that being said, we have been seeing more shoujo manga getting adapted outside of Kodansha as well. They're definitely nowhere near as abundant, but they are still there. Last year, we had the surprise anime announcement for Yuzuki Family's Four Sons, which is a lovely family slice-of-life drama that comes from the magazine Betsukomi. It had an extremely creative animation style, which played into the childlike aspects of the characters, with a great story to boot. While I wasn't completely sold on this one when I first heard that it got announced, it was just the right amount of heartwarming family drama and characters getting past grief that I needed. Another recent surprise that we just got for an anime announcement was the Dark History of the Reincarnated Villainess, a manga series from one of my favorite manga anthologies, Lala, which I hadn't even heard of this series before last year. In the last issue of Lala, it was announced that the Dark History of the Reincarnated Villainess was getting an anime adaptation, although we haven't got any additional information yet. The manga is a bit of a satire on the self self-insert fanfics that teen girls make in a very believable way. The main character literally gets self-inserted into the novel that she made when she was a teen. Just not as the self-insert character that she created for herself. It's a really goofy, fun manga that I can't wait to see how they translate it into anime. Adding on to those completely new anime series that are from big name publishing companies, we also have 2 shoujo smash hits that are returning for new seasons. Something that is incredibly rare, and especially for these 2 series with how long it's been in between the seasons. I'm of course talking about Kimi ni Todoke coming back for season 3 after 13 years, and Natsume's Book of Friends coming back for season 7 after 8 years. These 2 anime getting new seasons are just one of the many reasons why it's actually kind of looking a bit up for shoujo fans. Now, for Natsume's, I understand why it's returning. The manga is still ongoing, and the anime is still hugely beloved in Japan. For Kimi ni Todoke though, I can't for the life of me figure out why this anime is coming back after so long. The manga has been over for years now, and the spin-off series has been over for 2 years now. My best guess is that this is a way to promote mangaka Kuruhoshina as she returns for a new manga series, Toputo Beat. This is going to be her first new work outside of the Kimi ni Todoke universe since the 2000s. Having this new season airing at the same time as her new work would help to promote the new series as well. What I often end up having to leave out of these conversations is Josei anime though. Usually it's because I tend to put shoujo and josei into the same group, as they often get categorized that way anyway. Plus, the slights against shoujo are the same slights against media made for adult women. For a while now, shoujo has been on the decline, but josei has barely had the surface scratched. Which is why it's almost an even bigger deal that I actually have josei anime that I can promote this time around. Past years, I've only been able to promote one single josei anime that wasn't, and still isn't, even available in the United States. Even 2 titles would be a sight for sore eyes after none of that. The first one is the fantasy romance series Nina the Starry Bride, which comes from the Kodansha magazine B-Love. It's an award-winning, beautifully illustrated manga that has been running for about 5 years now. I have talked about this manga series quite a bit on my channel before because it is one of my favorite series. What is actually very notable about Nina the Starry Bride getting an anime is the fact that it comes from B-Love, which hasn't had an anime adaptation since Chihaya Furu in 2011. If you compare that to Kodansha's seinen magazine, Afternoon, they have 6 series that are being adapted into anime, with 3 of them having aired at the same time last year. It's quite the discrepancy that is very hard to overlook. I do want to mention one more anime adaptation that we are getting here, with the incredible names that are attached to it. Many people may not know of this series even because it never got an English license. It's a historical drama series called Cocoon, which ran in the Josei magazine Elegance Eve for 15 chapters. As what is described as a heart-wrenching story of young girls facing the tragedies of war, the anime could only be helmed by people who are uniquely familiar with these types of stories. Former animator of Studio Ghibli with productions like Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke under her belt, Hitomi Tateno has taken up the role as animation producer. Knowing this historic creator is a lead on this series can only mean it will be a mastery of visual storytelling. Even with all of these anime that I have mentioned so far, I still have a few more that I haven't been able to talk about in full. Having the ability to pick and choose which series I want to promote for the coming year of shoujo and josei anime adaptations is a far cry from the years previously when I could barely even find enough to fill up a video. Yes, only 2 or 3 anime adaptations for shoujo and josei is barely even the minimum. Yes, it's also hardly even a fraction of what shonen and seinen fans get for their series. However, I can hardly say that this year I'm entirely in the dumps about shoujosei anime adaptations in the future. Obviously, we'll continue to get our magical girls, our otome villainesses, and our web manga getting anime adaptations. Unless these huge trends die out, they will be the dominant of what we get for shoujo and josei. Much like how the equivalent male-oriented anime are dominated by shonen jump titles and isekai. But we are starting to see some of the largest publishing companies actually throw some confidence behind their shoujo and josei series. If this momentum can continue, we may even see shoujo and josei return to the peak of its frequency that we had around the mid-2000s. Still not a lot, but far more than we've been getting. Keeping up this momentum of adaptations is going to be largely dependent on the corporations as per usual. These anime adaptations can't just be half-hearted attempts at getting a brand out there before they receive a lukewarm reception and fizzle out. Audiences can tell when things aren't made with budgets that have an ounce of faith in the marketability behind them. If shoujo anime gets smaller budgets just by being shoujo manga, they'll be more easily dismissed. Given how little time animators even have to work on these series, we need to actually have these companies put their money where their mouth is. In all honesty, I would not be worried about the frequency of shoujo and josei anime that we did get if they all had a deep care and time to flourish. Much like how the anime adaptation for A Sign of Affection took 3 years between production and releasing. The result of which is a well-crafted adaptation of a sickeningly sweet romance shoujo. Adaptations of Yuzuki Family's Four Sons and My Love Story with Yamada are also examples of this. They were such good adaptations because they clearly had a budget and time to be good adaptations. Personally, I would take that over low-quality rush jobs any day. At the end of the day though, 2024 and bleeding into 2025 is looking just a little bit more hopeful for shoujo and josei anime. I genuinely feel like there is starting to be a shift in how the feminine media is viewed by these corporations who, while acknowledging that women drive most of their consumer market, rarely ever market specifically to them. We're beginning to see highly popular manga from shoujo magazines actually getting their dues and having a chance to grow more of an audience with their anime adaptations. We're even seeing this with adult women manga. I didn't mention this before because it's just a rumor right now, but one of the best-selling josei from last year, Ikoku Nikki, is rumored to be getting an anime adaptation. I find myself lately thinking about whether I give my audience enough tangible action to see the change that they want to see. As one American person who doesn't speak Japanese, I find it hard to definitively say what we can do other than contributing to capitalism that decides what gets made. Can I make a real-world difference by just simply bringing these issues to light, or do I need more solid call to action from my audience going forward so they can feel more positive along the way? So my call to action, as always, is this. Continue to uplift the shoujo and josei anime when they air. Support these series in any way you can, whether that just be watching the episodes when they air the day of, buying merch, or even just talking about them online. The fan community aspect of anime is just as important as the creators themselves. Without fan reaction, there's no incentive for companies to continue creating anime. As anime fans from outside of the domestic audience, we are not the primary target. However, we can still show the companies that work with these producers and distributors that we are interested in these series. We are still vocal about the kinds of anime that we want to see. And I do have hope in the shoujo and josei renaissance coming true within the next few years.